Okay, next up we have France v Wales, another friendly game happening this Saturday at 8:10. Is that correct?
8:10, that's 9:10 local time in Paris.
What's going on?
That's what they do, man.
Yeah,
they do the late night games over in France.
Yeah, I'm fine with late night, but why is it not at 9? Why 10 past?
Actually, it's a pre-dinner game for the French as well.
Yes, yeah, indeed.
That's a lunchtime game.
Yes, and it's going to be reffed by Carl Dixon as well. Friendly game. Both sides kind of just getting ready for both next week and the Autumn Nations Cup as well. That's kind of what they're at. So yeah, we'll start with France. We're going to look at both sides, what they kind of want to get out of the game for sure, and we'll start with France as they are the hosts.
Yes, and unfortunately, starting with France in terms of previewing the game has a more newsy feel to it than it does a sort of a rugby feel to it, because France's situation has been compromised and affected thoroughly by as a result of a dispute between the LNR and the FFR.
Yeah.
The dispute was ultimately resolved with the agreement between the organisations that no player will be included in more than 3 matchday squads throughout the 6-match campaign.
Yeah.
So that means that nobody can feature on the starting team, on the bench, or as a reserve, or as 24 or 25.
Medical jokers.
Yeah, exactly. Cannot feature can't go to the matches in any more than 3 of the 6-week window, which includes obviously this game, which is a friendly, the last game of the Six Nations, and the 4 games of the Autumn Nations Cup. Thankfully, mercifully, this is an internal French dispute, and the tier 2 players and Finn Russell and all the players from other countries playing in the top tours or in the Pro De are governed by have the freedom to play for their nations as a result of the World Rugby rules.
Yes.
And vis-a-vis test windows taking over. So that is mercifully true, but from the point of view of the French, they have this situation with the LNR. The LNR were fuming that this test window existed. They're outraged really by the existence of test rugby, I think.
Yeah, the LNR, in an ideal world, they would have no power and have to ask for their players. To be honest, they really do more harm than good.
Well, they do some good in terms of the French rugby is a massive institution, and the LNR have now 3 professional divisions, which employ a lot of players, not just French, but from tier 2 nations, 100%. And give vital contracts to those guys. So I don't want to be going out too much and demonising them, but their attitude to test rugby, their constant attempts to undermine test rugby, are counterintuitive and actually hurt the game. But they're only concerned about their own bottom line, which is the French public, and the French public caring about the French national team annoys them, and they'd sooner have them all care about the club rugby institutions and forget them and forget the rest of the world. It should be all about French club institutions. That's nonsense. Sort of the LNR attitude,
it's absolutely nonsense, and it's hard to forgive them because even the more recent news of Nadolo has kind of come out of retirement because now he's not playing in France anymore. He's in Leicester, so now he can play for Fiji. Yeah. The guy didn't go to the World Cup.
Yeah, we were made to believe that this was a personal decision on his part. Which was deeply, deeply frustrating. It was never true. He
was coerced because as we said, the World Rugby do have certain rules governing this. So it's we can't make you stay, but we can make you know that we'll make you miserable if you choose to go. So we'll strong arm you into staying. And that's essentially what they did. And it's those kinds of tactics that really do annoy me. And then other things like this story annoy me too, because it now means that France will probably be using north of 60 players in this little window.
Something like that. I mean, it's at least 50. At least 50, because they can't have more. They're going to have 25 going to any game, because you need, what if one of your props goes down injured in the warm-up? You need to have guys who can slot in. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah.
So you're talking about potentially 27 players going to a match day, and they can't go more than 3 days. So you're talking about perhaps 60 players, which is incredible over a 6-week period, and it really puts them.
It makes it tough to make a cohesive squad out of it, or build a team in any capacity for any kind of thing. It really seems they can't do that.
It creates this mad dynamic for the French coaching staff where you're like, okay, what do we do? We have this game against Ireland next week, which is potentially we could win the Six Nations. We're gonna maybe England touch wood, England struggle, only beat Italy by 25 points. Now we go into this game knowing 27-point win over Ireland does us. It's a big ask, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. You certainly want your A team on the pitch.
And
for
so, what's the question? Like, do you mix it? Do you put like some players in one team, but keep some for another weekend, or do you go thoroughly A and B? And A and B is brutal. Like, we pick our first team, our first choice bench, our first choice reserves, and we have them all used for this game. Well, I guess the reserves you would just not do. You would pick like complete under 20 guys as reserves and then just hope there isn't an injury.
That's probably what they'll do. Yeah,
that's probably what they'll do. But they'll pick their first 23 for that game. That rules that, and then presumably if you're plotting a game to do that in, it's going to be the Six Nations game, the playoff game after the regular Autumn Nations Cup, and then probably the Scotland game because that's in Murrayfield.
Yeah.
But then that means you're picking a B team, a thorough B team with none of even your first choice bench. Against Fiji,
and this week against Wales,
So it's a completely fucked dynamic if you're France, isn't it?
It's crazy. Like, you're going to see many different French teams over the next few weeks. This week we probably won't be, I have Entamac up there, but he possibly won't feature.
No.
But you might see the likes of Louis Jalibert or Carbonell, who've looked good at club level.
Jalibert struggled in the Scotland game, so it depends on what they like. Obviously they'll have some wiggle room for dynamism between the squads because it's only 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off, so you can move a guy from the first team to the second team, etc.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll give Carbonell the shout this week just to see if he steps it up, and then he could take Jalibert's place because Jalibert had that bad day in the Scotland game.
He did.
So yeah, I think there's some young French excitement to look out for, obviously, in this game.
And it's also it's evidence of them being in a position where they can do this. Like, they can use north of 60 players because they do actually have that many professional French players to choose from. So it'll be interesting in that regard. But it'll be tough for them to get any kind of momentum or cohesion as a group, and certainly like what we were talking about with all these games, there's a bit of ring rust. Everyone's been in lockdown. Obviously the club game has resumed, but still the international game, you'd expect to see a little bit of a bedding in period. France will kind of be chopping and changing all through it.
Yeah, and they'll have no opportunity. Like, you would have, when this fixture was scheduled, you would have assumed that this was a chance to knock the ring rust out for the first team before the big game against Ireland, which they now clearly can't do.
Yeah.
It's going to be a sort of a mess of a French team, but you'll see some guys who possibly won't feature next week. We might see Tommy Ramos get a shout out, and there'll definitely be some exciting prospects
for sure. Yeah, it'll be good to see it.
Maybe Dupy Show from Racing.
All of these guys have had good showings, although he did play last week, so maybe he might be rested.
Yeah, I know. Do they give a shite about rest?
No, they don't tend to. But it's a bit of a shame that is the conclusion. Obviously, it's good that they got it resolved anyway, because it could have been even more sticky and ugly. But it'll be just curiosity for France over the next wee while, and I'm kind of at a loss to say what to expect from the team they named to play Wales this weekend, because I think
and how that team can look.
Yeah, I just don't know.
You'd almost pick the under-20s.
Yeah, because they'd have more cohesion. But I expect them to kind of name that team, probably throw it around, not really take it too seriously. They'll be given license to try things because they'll be trying to play their way into the A team anyway. They might look a little loose. In fact, they almost certainly will look a little loose. But it may sometimes a beautiful sequence or two may come from the passes actually sticking.
Yeah, the fantastic thing about France, a bit like New Zealand at a lower level, is they do have great attacking instincts.
Yes,
no matter what the situation.
They will flood a short side with a load of runners and grab a nice try, and they do find a way to score against Wales. But themselves and Wales have had some ding dong battles over the last few years.
They have,
and neither side really getting blowing the other one away. They've always been little bitty contests, and this could be another one.
And France got the better of Wales and Cardiff earlier this year, so that's definitely a feather in their cap. But this French team will look a bit more like perhaps a French Barbarians outfit, which could make for a fun game. But from Wales's point of view, they lost to France earlier in the year.
They want to get that W back.
Yeah, absolutely. They have a bit of a boost going into this last period. Obviously, very disappointing Six Nations so far. 3 losses from 4 games. That's rough. But they have Jonathan Davis back fit.
That's great to see.
After Nick Tompkins really did struggle in the 13 shirt in his absence, it's definitely good to see that grey scrum cap back in. Bristol 10 Callum Sheedy has entered the squad.
He might be getting a first cap.
Louis Rees-Sammet from Gloucester, very exciting.
Welsh flyer that he is. Who else? They have one of the Wasps who hasn't joined them. That Rowlands, the second row, big hefty oak.
He won't feature this week.
He won't feature this week, but could be a factor next week in their game, and then going forward in the Nations Cup as well. They're they're missing Thomas Francis in the front row, but they have the likes of Samson Lee, Dylan Lewis, Rhys Carey, Wyn Jones, Ryan Elias, all of these guys pretty experienced in the Welsh shirt and will be hoping to make the step up.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have some quality. Alan Wyn Jones class in the second row as well. And Will Rawlins coming in could be massive for them.
Yeah, Ball has been the incumbent there, but it'd be nice to see Rawlins punish him or push him even.
I think that if you look through the Welsh squad, you have guys to compete everywhere. Like in the back row, you got Falataus and Tippericks and Wainwrights and Navidis and Ross Moriarty. Josh McLeod is now coming into the squad.
Season. It's good to see him in as well. Yeah,
you know, at 9 you always have little mouthy guys. Curious 3 selections at 9 in this squad: Davis, Webb, and Hardy.
Yeah,
I'm reading that Webb is the front runner to start, and I think that would be a mistake.
I think it's crazy.
Like Murray in Ireland.
Yeah, I haven't seen Rhys Webb play a good game in quite a couple of years, and yet
he's very slow. People
keep talking about him as if he's starting for the Lions or something, and I'm like, what have you been watching? I think he's a nightmare. But no, I would be going with Davies with Kieran Hardy off the bench. To be honest, that would be my
Gareth Davis was brilliant at the World Cup, and I still would have faith in him. In the centres, obviously you've got Watkin and Davis, who I think will be their first choice guys going forward, with Nick Tompkins pushing in behind. And then in the back 3 you've got Lightning, Josh Adams, one of the best wingers in Europe right now. Louis Rees-Zammit, likewise. Liam Williams is going to play for Scarlets this weekend.
That's right. Yes, he's good news.
He's back at 15. I mean, that's a brilliant team in all areas except perhaps the tight 5, and that's where I have a concern for Wales.
Yes, they might find it difficult to compete. Certainly with the French, definitely have a load of options there. Don't know what they'll be picking this week to send out, but whoever they pick, they will have pretty decent scrummaging props and a pretty strong tight 5. So that'll be a big test for Wales. Wales are still trying to in a betting in period, but it's kind of important for Pivac that he starts to get some momentum, because
the pressure starts mounting if you don't.
Exactly, it's a results-driven business, and this is a friendly game away from home, but an away win in France would be a big thing to get it. Regardless,
it'd be a nice thing to get, a nice confidence booster, and then obviously they got the Scotland game next week, which is going to be a right tough game. But then
bit of a dead rubber, but still,
if you're motivated for it,
I think Wales should be too, because as we were just saying, it's a results-driven business, and they need to start getting some. If they're to get any momentum or just faith in their new coaching ticket, because they are in the curious position of having a 10-year plus tenure with one coach, one system, where everything, even while the clubs were in a basket case, everything fed up, and everyone seemed to up their game when they were in a Welsh shirt. You'd see the likes of Lee Halfpenny look pretty average in their club colours, and then when they pull on the Welsh jersey, just grow in stature, and that kind of magic dust seems to have vanished a little with Pivac, and they need to kind of find a new identity. And with the clubs kind of struggling as they have been, it could get out of hand for them quickly.
Yeah, exactly. They do have a lot of talent. They have quick wingers. They have an excellent 10 in Dan Biggar. They have certainly, if they go with Gareth Davis at 9, they have a 9 who can drive a very nice pace. Jonathan Davis, as we know, a very classy offensive player as well. Liam Williams to come into the team. There is an identity there that could be about very nice, sharp offense, with almost like a Chiefs side Dave Rennie type of deal, like with Australia, jackal like hell at the breakdown,
feed on turnovers
and move the ball. I would love to see Wales play that way. But obviously defence is a work on after that rough time of it in the Six Nations.
Especially considering how good they were defensively at the World Cup. It was quite a drop.
To be honest with you, without being too harsh on the lad, it was Tompkins who came in the absence of Jonathan Davis, and there was a lot of hype around him, and he was playing great rugby for Saracens. But he came in and defended very poorly from 13, and 13 is
such a channel
on what it hinges like. It's that was rough for them. So hopefully Jonathan Davis coming in can settle that.
And hopefully Tompkins can grow into that role. It could be a useful thing that they poached Tompkins, because he was eligible for England and he could have been
another one. Another one.
Yeah. So and Sheedy will be the next one.
Would you go with Sheedy this week?
I would bring him in off the bench. I think
I would start with him.
Maybe you could maybe start him. Either or. I definitely would cap him this week. I'd give him the run out and let him get in the Welsh jersey and try and throw the ball about. He's been brilliant for Bristol. Bristol have been are a different team without him. They have that other out half who gives no control, and Sheedy coming in kind of gives them that surety he can move the ball. like with Bristol, he plays that attacking, running, tempo-driven rugby. So maybe pick him at 10 and get Wales running, because they do have, like you say, those energetic outside backs to feed, and a Jay Davis to get on the ball. Yeah, it'd be nice to see quite a loose. I think the game will be a little loose. Just compared to what you expect from Six Nations, it being a friendly. But it'd be nice to see both teams go at it with the right attitude and try and throw the ball around. And if it can become a shootout, then may the better side win.
Yeah, that's the ideal, really, when you get a game that turns into such... It was already a friendly and it turns into a colossal dead rubber. Let's just have it entertain the folks.
Yeah.
So on that merit, I'm going to go for a 40-all draw.
40-all draw.
Yeah,
why
that's
not?
my prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 6-point win for Wales.
Okay.
Away from home. Like, I don't think they've won in France in a wee while. I think France will be affected by this.
They surely won in France last year, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they won the Grand Slam.
Oh, that's right.
Fair. And France were after winning in Cardiff. So
this is true. This is true. Sorry, it's just been a World Cup and a
pandemic.
A while can mean anything. But I'm going to go with a Wales win against a stuttery French team.
Another red card for France?
Could be. But with that, we'll move on.
Thank you for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like and share with your friends. And if you'd like to hear more of what we have to say, please be sure to subscribe and click that bell so you get notified when we upload our videos. And please join the comment section as well. We like to get a fun conversation going here.